advocate tooth and nail for a better way forward. And I'm incredibly proud to introduce one of those fighters today, a person who I respect greatly. I've had the chance to watch Alex work up close and personal as a colleague and a friend on the Energy and Commerce Committee. And you're not going to find a stronger advocate for regular folks. People say, well, she's the future of the party. I say she's the today of the party. Don't you love it? Coming here to Plattsburgh to say hi to a great portion of folks who are supportive of progressive politics that will move us forward. And Alex always leads with humility and humanity, articulating a clear vision for that better tomorrow and fighting in the given moment. I'm proud to call her my friend, and I know you'll be inspired by what she has to say today. Please join me in giving that traditional warm welcome of the North Country to Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Enough for being here today. It's so amazing being in this space with you all. And to gather, we've got a full house here, over 900 people here in this room. The other thing, though, is that even in the pouring rain, we have another 800 people outside. That is what days like today are all about. I want to also give a huge shout out to our musical opener, Lillian Ledbetter, who opened for us today, as well as the Clinton County Democratic Chair, Brandy Lloyd. Of course, I got to give a shout out to our nurses with Nice and Jessie Monet. We've got Marvin Shaw from 1199 SCIU. Representative Paul Tonka, and I can't thank you all enough. Isn't he the best? Isn't he the... You know, I have to, you know, give extra gratitude to Paul. You know, when I first got elected to Congress, the environment in the party was chilly, to say the least, in terms of my welcome. And I used to have an old mentor of mine. Back when a lot of people don't know that I actually first started doing community organizing in Texas, of all places. I know, that's crazy, right? But I used to organize Latino families and youth in Texas and in the Bronx, too. And I have a mentor, and he would tell me sometimes, he's like, you know, when times are good, everyone's your friend. But if you want to know who your real friends are, when you're just in a tough time and you've got one quarter, the people that you can think of, I'm dating myself, right, with Gen Z and payphones, but the people that you think of when you're holding out one quarter and who to call, those are your friends. Those are your real friends. And Paul Tonka is a real friend. I bring this up because, you know, sometimes the politics in the House, it's all like very complicated and, you know, all of that. But Energy and Commerce, the Energy and Commerce Committee is one of the most powerful committees in the entire U.S. House of Representatives. A lot of people don't know about 60% of all the legislation that passes through Congress passes through that committee. And so it's a very plum position that a lot of people are looking for. And it's also a target where a lot of lobbyists want to apply pressure, right? It's everything with energy, everything with healthcare, pharmaceuticals, trade, manufacturing, technology, all of it runs through this committee. And when I was a freshman, and it's like they say it's a dog-eat-dog world, and I was wearing Milk-Bone underwear. It was like that. And I had put in a request to serve on the Energy and Commerce Committee. People were like, who does this chick think that she is? It was actually Paul that was one of the only people that said, actually, she has something to contribute and to offer here. And a lot of the time, when we think about who is there's a lot of discussion about the leadership of the Democratic Party and the old guard and the new guard and all of this, but a lot of times some of the quiet, good people do not get enough recognition. And Paul Tonka was one of those people. You all in supporting him, and everyone who supports and organizes and has his back really does a service to the entire Congress by sending him back every year. So I just want to thank you all so much for that. But fast forward, this year I finally did get on the Energy and Commerce Committee. What Trump calls this big, beautiful bill. And it's actually one of the ugliest and scariest pieces of legislation to pass through Congress in modern American history. It's a time that is easy and ripe for despair and in lacking hope. And a lot of us sometimes, rightfully so, are looking around and saying, where are Democrats in this moment? Where is our fight? What are we doing to fight back? And when I think about this kind of dissonance and difference, I also know that this is where this change really belongs. It's right here in rooms like these and in theaters like the Strand. Because where we see, I felt this way back in 2017 when I was waitressing behind and bartending. And I look around, and I remember looking up who my congressman was, and I was like, man, I've never seen this guy before in my life. But then I looked around and I saw how powerful he was. And I knew that it was never going to change unless someone put their hat in the ring. And no one was putting their hat in the ring, and no one had put their hat in the ring in 20 years. I know that there are future town council people in this room. I know that there are community organizers in this room. I know that there are future members of Congress in this room. Plattsburgh, we cannot let things be easy on anyone here who's participating in this. Every single Republican at every level of government in the state of New York must be challenged, point blank, period. And they should not be challenged with old ideas, Plattsburgh. They need to be challenged fighting for health care as a human right for every American. Every single one. Don't give anyone an easy walk this year or next. I want Republicans running for dog catcher to be challenged next year. Every single one of them better be tied up and let them know that we will not forget what they did. There are consequences to fighting and taking away people's health care. There are consequences to going against a living wage. There are consequences to ripping up law-abiding, dutiful, undocumented people from their country. There are consequences. There are consequences for fighting against LGBT rights. There are consequences for taking away our right to choose. And we need to know it not just from New York City, but from Plattsburgh and Hudson County and Utica and Buffalo and Rochester and in rural areas, suburban areas, and urban areas too. That means it's all of us. And that means it's time to reset the table and for us to have a conversation about not just what we are fighting against, but what we are fighting for. What we are fighting for. Now, I don't want to spend too much of the time talking because I want to make sure that I hear from you all. But I want to also be clear about something. A lot of times in times like these, there's this idea of who is qualified to step up. It's this idea that you have to climb some ladder and wait your turn and have a perfect pedigree. But that's not what our communities are about. It's not about picking who's going to come flying down to be our best representative. It's about who is representative of our experiences. You are qualified to do this job. If you're a waitress, you are qualified to do this job. If you are a nurse at one of the rural hospitals that may be facing closure, you are qualified to do this job. I want to talk about Elise Stefanik just for a minute. She did this whole farewell tour to this district in Plattsburgh and all of these towns because she cut a sweetheart deal in the House. I sell out my community and you name me ambassador to the UN. And she thought she had it in the bag, right? But I want to tell you about why that didn't work out. Because you all started changing the political terrain out here in this seat. And the Republican Party said, wait, this R+10 seat looks like we might lose this thing. That is the real reason. Because Elise Stefanik was supposed to vacate her seat and another Republican was supposed to cakewalk right into it. But we saw everything that was going on, and because of your organizing, and because of all of your conversations with your neighbors, you all took an R+10 seat into a toss-up. In like 3 months, in a very early period of time. So, Elise did her farewell tour, and I think it's time to finish the job. Let's shove her to the door, Pastor. She's not welcome here anymore. And when she loses, she will be replaced by a fighting Democrat who believes in health care for all New Yorkers. Because there are consequences. This bill that was just passed has real life effects for all of us. The Claxton Hepburn Medical Center in Ogdensburg is now on the chopping block thanks to Elise Stefanik. Messina Hospital and Clifton Fine Hospital in Star Lake. That hospital is now going to have a much harder time keeping its doors open thanks to Elise Stefanik. And Gouverneur Hospital and Lewis County General Hospital in Lowville has the same story. We shouldn't reward people like this with elected positions in office of public trust. 44,000 New Yorkers in this district alone will be kicked off of Medicaid thanks to her actions. But we are not hopeless in a situation like this. Because there's organizing that happens at the ballot box, but there's organizing that happens outside of it too. The ways that they are trying to kick people off of Medicare and Medicaid is by creating, they call them work requirements. I'm telling you right now, they're paperwork requirements. These work requirements do not kick people off that are undeserving of Medicaid. And I can tell you that because the state of Georgia and the state of Arkansas have already tried to do this. And what they found was that the overwhelming amount of people who were kicked off of Medicaid were deserving people. Because when you actually think about it, when you're asking someone with a severe disability, or what if you ask someone with a severe cognitive disability, that they have to fill out complicated paperwork once a year in order to keep their health care, who do you think gets kicked off? And on top of it, they want to act like this adds efficiency. But the fact of the matter is, when you create all of these mountains of paperwork, what you're actually doing is creating huge bureaucracies of for-profit companies that try to file through that paperwork and charge the government way too much money. The fact of the matter is, Medicaid remains one of the most cost-efficient public programs in American history. There is not an overwhelming amount of people who do not deserve Medicaid who are on it. But this is their whole game right here, right? That if you repeat something enough, they'll convince everybody that there are millions of undocumented people on Medicaid and Medicare, when undocumented people are not entitled to a federal dollar in these programs. And they know that. And they know that. But they use this because they want us all to turn against each other and cut our nose in order to spite our face. And we will not be fooled by their nonsense anymore. But one of the things that's very important for us in order to really till the soil and lay the ground for powerful movement and for all of these, for folks all over the place to be challenged, is that we have to be willing to be vulnerable enough to share about how this is affecting our lives. Because the fact of the matter is, it's very difficult for us to say, hey, that's my wife, that's my son, that's me. And what it allows them to do is fill that void with their storytelling, with their lies and with their myths. And so one of the things that's important to me, and one of the reasons why I think it's important for us to come together today in this town hall, is to share some of those stories. And I won't ask you to do something that I myself am not willing to do. Because when I was running for office, I did not have health care. I ran for office completely uninsured. And there were, at the time, while I was fighting for healthcare for others, this was not something, I felt embarrassed to share this publicly. I felt, again, that people would think I was not qualified to run for office if I didn't have healthcare or if I was struggling to pay my rent. But the fact of the matter was, I understood what people were going through precisely because of what I had been enduring. Before my primary election. And I had gone to a doctor to get a checkup. You know, and that's the thing, when you don't have health insurance, every ache, every toothache, every joint fills you with terror and wonder, because you know that you can't really afford to see a doctor very much, and you don't know if there's something wrong or not. And so I had mustered up the courage to get a physical. And thankfully my doctor had felt, we think everything is fine, but we just want to run a blood test to make sure. And I was in that exam room, and I just started to cry. I put my head in my hands, and I started to cry, because I couldn't afford a blood test. And they said, well, we think there's this free clinic where medical students will run some basic tests like these on the weekends, on a Saturday or a Sunday. And there's no list, there's no reservation, you just have to show up. So I'm running for office. I'm a candidate for Congress. And I show up at 7 o'clock in the morning to get in line for a clinic that opens at 8 a.m. And I get there, and I just have to wait. You just have to wait. And it felt just like my friends that I had worked with at the restaurant. There was a woman who was pregnant, and because she was from the UK, she didn't have access to healthcare here. And so she just waited at free clinics for all her prenatal care. And this is the country that we are living in right now. We have to really see and hear these stories to understand the stakes of this moment. And so I get in, I wait hours in this clinic, and there are volunteers knocking doors with palm cards with my face on it. It was a very complicated feeling. It was a very complicated feeling. But also, it's also the source of the energy, and it's the source of why we fight for these things so hard. Because when you've been there, you understand better than anyone else, better than any white paper, better than any statistic. Because when this bill is scored, and it says that there are 17 million Americans who will be kicked off of their health insurance because of it, we know what that means. We know that it's resources like that that will be flooded. And we know the stakes of it in that moment too. And so I wanted to make sure that we set that stage, because when we ask these questions, it's okay to say, I'm asking for me. I want to know for my sister. I know that my neighbor is dealing with this. And how do we come together to best fight and respond? Not just react, but respond on our front foot forward. And so I am looking forward to having this conversation, and I want you all to know that this is not just a one and done deal. I am committed to Plattsburgh. Paul Tonka is committed to Plattsburgh, and to this entire county, and making sure that we finish the job next year. We're going to do this thing, all right? Thank you all so much. We're going to take some brief time for questions. I think SEIU or